Hey there, Catholic Coaching Podcast listeners. Maybe you've heard about the rise in this epidemic of loneliness that's out there. Maybe you're experiencing that yourself. I want to give you a hopeful message here in this podcast. You don't have to stay in that place of loneliness. In fact, there's a way of reframing this as an opportunity for unity.
Yeah. So join us. We're going to give you a step-by-step process to walk yourself through loneliness and on the other side of unity with our Lord. So enjoy.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Catholic Coaching Podcast. My name is Matt.
And I'm Erin.
We're going to be your Catholic coaches for the next 45 minutes here. Okay, today we're going to be talking about loneliness. Okay, it's one of the most common things that people experiences, that phenomenon that people are experiencing nowadays. We see it certainly on the rise. Mm-hmm. I can think of the book Bowling Alone, and it talks about the stats, particularly amongst men, that it went from 3% in the 1990s, but now later, or actually in the 1950s, now I don't know what it is, but like there's been an increase of men that can't claim even one good friend.
Yes.
15% of men today, they repeated the study in 2021. 15% say they don't have one good friend. 20% of unmarried men say they don't have one good friend. About 10% of ladies will say the same thing here.
Yeah.
So
what's causing it? It's not because we have a lack of humans on Earth. We probably have at least the same amount, if not more, humans on Earth nowadays. So it's not a lack of people. So what is causing this phenomenon of loneliness? I almost said holiness, but
loneliness here. Okay.
Maybe that's another podcast.
Well, this is not the first time that we've spoken about loneliness on the Catholic Coaching Podcast. A couple of years ago, we actually brought on Dr. Kevin Vost, who wrote the book, A Catholic's Guide to Loneliness. And he was approaching things from a more therapeutic standpoint. God rest his soul. It was so sad when he passed away. He was just such a good mentor and just person to have in our lives. And he was a great supporter of the work here. But one of the things that Dr. Kevin shared was that the best response or antidote or approach to loneliness, one that has the most effectiveness at helping people get out of that depressive, despairing, lonely place, was actually processing through it, reframing the experience of loneliness, right, as something that was not necessarily despairing and leading to isolation, but even an opportunity for growth. That's what we want to walk you through a process of even analyzing your own loneliness here, but seeing a new perspective of it. How can what you're experiencing, be an opportunity for hope and greater unity rather than an opportunity for despair and sorrow?
Yeah. Yeah. So first, we're going to define what loneliness is, and we're going to ask the psychological world, and then we're going to ask the church, and then we're going to kind of come up with what we have gathered from both of those. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to give you a step-by-step process to hack your own loneliness. So it's kind of silly for us to think we never feel lonely, right? But when that comes, what to do with it. So we are going to work ourselves through that. And it's going to end in prayer because ultimately God wants to meet us there. So
and even with that, it's not about just overcoming the loneliness. It's about flipping it on its head entirely, where loneliness leads to an isolation. We want to see this as an opportunity for unity.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's dive into the definitions of it. Let's start. What do our psychologists have to say about loneliness?
All right. Psychology defines loneliness as a distressing. What? What are you doing?
I'm just snoring because psychology definitions are boring to me, but relevant. Here, go ahead.
Very relevant. Psychology defines loneliness as a distressing feeling. Okay. Pay attention. As a distressing emotion. And I'm going to test you guys if you've been listening to our podcast. So it defines it as a distressing emotion arising from a perceived,
another word there, perceived,
a perception arising from a perceived discrepancy between one's desired and actual social relationships. Okay, let me break that down. So it's an emotion and it arises from a perceived. That doesn't mean that it's true or not. It's a perception of a situation, of whether you are with somebody or not, or connecting with somebody or not.
Yeah, there's an expectation of where the relationship should be and a perception that reality is not meeting that expectation.
Yes.
All
yes. Right. Okay. So it's not simply about being alone. It's rather a subjective experience of not having enough or good enough social connections to meet one's needs.
Yeah,
right?
I think this is starting to get at where it's not about being physically around somebody. Right. We can be physically
Yes.
around people. We all know the stories of the movie stars and the rock stars that have taken their own lives, or they divulge in their, documentaries about how lonely they feel. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they're surrounded by tons of people. So it's not a phenomenon that's just circumstantial, but there's getting into something of the psychology here of like, you can be around all these people and still feel lonely, still feel unseen, still feel unheard, still feel like you're not connected with these people.
Yep. Okay. So what does the church have to say? And does it agree with psychology or not?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here's what the church says. In Catholicism, loneliness is understood as both a universal human experience, okay, and a potential catalyst for spiritual growth.
Love the hope.
Yay.
Thank
hope.
you, church.
Positivity. Loneliness is recognized as a state of emotional isolation or disconnection, distinct from mere physical solitude.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a difference between just the state of being alone and the actual emotion and that subjective experience
of it. Okay.
Okay. And what is that distinction? What causes that distinction? It's your thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's your thought about the state of being alone.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's saints that we can look to. I think of St. John of the Cross, right? Who was somebody that was, even within his religious order, he was persecuted and he was left in isolation, locked in his cell for long periods of time in isolation. So physically in solitude, but also experienced a deep spiritual solitude. And there was sorrow there, but there was hope. And that's a big distinction here. Where loneliness, you can feel the sorrow of being in the state of being unknown and unseen, right? And in isolation and physically in solitude. But the big difference here, and it goes back to even what the church defined as an opportunity for unity. John of the Cross saw this as an opportunity for unity, and he entered into a deep unity amidst the dark night of the soul, which he wrote about. But he's the one that really gives us this, the trajectory of the spiritual life, where you go through this purgative. Well, you have the purgative way, and then you have the illuminative way, and somewhere along that, between that illuminative and unitive way, you have this experience of the dark night, where it is agonizing. There is pain. There is real sorrow that is there. And on the other side of it is unity. That's the hope. Mother Teresa speaks about this also in her books, her memoir here as well. So the saints have a way of approaching, they have a way of framing, a way of perceiving that solitude, or even that experience, that sense of being unseen, unheard, unknown, even by God himself in that moment, the sense that God himself, Father, like, why have you abandoned me? But they still have a way of holding on to the hope. And it's a theological hope. It's a real infusion of hope that sustains them. We're on the other side of that, unity, folks, and we're all called to this.
And that's what they say. It's a potential catalyst for spiritual growth. So,
so cool.
So we could go, this is terrible. This is despairing. This is never going to change. We have a choice. We could go that route, or we could go, what is God teaching me here? How is God calling me into deeper unity here? I'll give it my own example. Okay. Where the solitude, which is the state of being alone, was not the same thing as loneliness. So in loneliness is that sorrow and that despair that comes from your perception of being alone. Okay. So when I was in college, I never really spent a lot of time alone. I grew up in a big family. I was sanguine. I loved being around people. I went to school. I wasn't homeschooled or anything. I was an only child. So I like was not used to being alone. You know, I had roommates all through college. And so it was one summer I stayed there to do a couple of classes over the summer, and I worked grounds, and grounds was just like, I didn't work with a lot of people. You would water a tree, these new like trees, and you would just put the water thing there.
This is a lot of time by yourself.
It was a lot of time by myself. And I remember coming to this moment of choice in my own story where it was just like, Aaron, you can be really disappointed by this, or you can choose to use this time wisely. And so I would bring my prayer journal and I would like put the thing on the tree. I'd hold it with my feet because it was just, that's all I had to do. It was like, I was just watering these trees every day, and I was by myself, and I would just say like, Lord, thank you for this time alone. What would you like to speak to me? So I was really coming into that place of unity with the Lord, and it changed my perception of loneliness to solitude, that chosen feeling that created a lot of peace and rest in my own life. And I actually became so attached to it that I was mad when it ended. Like I was just kind of like, I love being alone.
Yeah, you learn to really love it. I think at the time, even before you and I got married, I mean, I before my deployment, before we met, I every opportunity I got to go out and party and do those things, meet up with the guys down in San Diego, like I took that opportunity. I just didn't want to be by myself. I had this, I didn't enjoy.
Aversion.
I had an aversion to being by myself. After my deployment, there's certainly a lot of things that a deployment can do to kind of change your heart and build some gratitude. But all I can say is I had a deeper desire, not only a desire, but an appreciation to just stay by myself. I would literally go out for walks in the desert. I would spend more time in silence. I wasn't isolating by any sort of means intentionally, but it was just a way of honoring that silence. And even on deployments, as much as there's high kinetic experiences, there's a lot of boredom that takes place without all of the necessary distractions. This was before even smartphones, right? Where that a lot of guys, they take their smartphones and they have the same amount of distractions, in the bush as they do, elsewhere. So it was a reframing of an experience. And what I hear in your story and in my story, and I know that you kind of even around that same time, you were going through another experience of somewhat being in the desert, somewhat lonely as you were doing on your man diet.
Yeah, that was years later.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But there's a preparation that happens in that place of solitude, right? And it happens through a deeper, an invitation to enter, like you were doing, into a deeper relationship with our Lord in that process. And that even prepares us to receive greater intimacy in our relationships here on earth.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So based on that, loneliness is an emotion that comes from a thought that is based off of this perception of like, it is not good that I am alone. Okay. Right. Like it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
That I am.
Yes. And I like looking at it as a combination of sorrow and despair. Okay. Because again, John of the Cross, Mother Teresa, they felt the sorrow of that, of being alone, but they didn't feel the despair. There was hope that was in it. And that was a great gift, that hope that was surpassed all understanding that was there. And it led to greater unity with God.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So if we know that it's more of an internal experience and not an external experience, an external experience is like being alone, right? Yeah. Like we said, you can experience loneliness or solitude. There's a lot of choices in that.
Yep.
But if it's an internal experience, we are going to approach it internally. So the strategy is going to be different than just changing your circumstances. Now, sometimes you do change your circumstances, but we recommend that you actually kind of hack the mindset first and then change your circumstances, because then you can actually go out and find friends from a place of freedom and not desperation and not like neediness, right? You're coming at it from a place of self-gift and freedom, which always is a lot more fun. Okay. So we are going to reframe this loneliness into an opportunity for unity step by step. Okay. So come with me. Let's go. All right.
Number one, step one.
Yes. I just want to say this across the board. You get to choose how you want to perceive your circumstances. Okay. There could be a room full of people and they still feel lonely. And then you could have a ton of no one and feel great. So like you get to choose how you want to look at this. Number 1, identify the unhelpful thought patterns. Okay. Identify the thought patterns that are actually leading to that emotion of loneliness. So you can go back to actually a recent event where you probably felt lonely. I'll give you guys an example. When I was single, I always felt really lonely. I called it the Sunday blues on Sunday. I wasn't living by my family and Sundays were like family days. And so I always felt a little bit lonely. So you can go back to a recent example of like, when was I feeling lonely? That sorrow, that sadness for being alone or not being known or seen. You know, maybe that's another way of doing it. And you want to identify the thought that was causing it. So you could ask yourself, you put yourself in that position. Okay. Why? What am I thinking? Why am I feeling lonely? Why am I feeling sad about being alone? What am I thinking? Well, I feel like nobody understands me, or I feel like I'm not being seen.
Yeah, I don't know where I belong. I've got no place to go. Again, it goes back to
I have no family.
Yep. Starts to even reveal some perhaps these core needs, core desires
yes.
that are being unmet in your heart.
And
right?
that's good. Bring those up. Like, I don't have these things. I don't have security. Maybe it's like safety. Maybe you're feeling like a lack of security. Another way you can identify these thoughts, because remember, the thoughts are the things that are causing the loneliness. It's not the actual circumstance. It's the thoughts. Okay. So another way you could ask and identify those thoughts is you could ask yourself, how am I interpreting this scenario? Like, let's just say it's Sundays. Right? So if you have the Sunday blues like me, how am I interpreting Sundays? Like, why am I feeling sad? Why am I feeling blue here?
Yeah. And even what you start to do is you start to identify what's the expectation that you have for a Sunday. Because again, remember, loneliness, the way that the psychologists define it is you have an expectation of a relationship and then a perceived reality of where relationship is, a perception of where it is. And that disconnect is somewhere at the root of that loneliness. And so there's even an element of disappointment that's a part of there. So get in touch with that expectation that you had for connection with people that perhaps is being unmet in that moment. Yeah.
And I want to say something about that. Like, don't use this as an excuse to beat yourself up. That's not going to help anything. It's not going to help anyone. Like, if you're like, man, I shouldn't have these expectations, just check that. Expectations are really just values in disguise. So you could just be like, if I had an expectation of feeling like I'm with a family, like that's a value. That's a value. And that's a good value to have. I like being around my family. I like being around people who know me. Okay. So you want to identify the thought. Why am I lonely? What am I thinking? How am I interpreting?
Goodness gracious. Continue.
Interpreting. You guys can use that new word. And then you just pick one of those thoughts, whatever is the most painful. Just pick that one. Next up is you want to diffuse from the loneliness thought. So diffusion, cognitive diffusion, is a technique that is used in acceptance and commitment therapy, also known as ACT. And it helps you to put space between you and a thought. So often we think we are our thoughts, right? Because they happen so fast. There's so many of them. And it's just the experience of which we're living into. And what this does is it starts to make that thought into an object that we get to choose or not, right? We get to choose if we want to buy into that thought or get on that train or, get in that thought boat. I don't know. There's probably a lot of ways you can look at it. So a really easy way to diffuse from a thought is just to kind of, reframe the thought by putting a preface on the front end of it. So you could say, I notice that I'm thinking blank. I'm
having the Sunday blues.
Yes. I notice that I'm having the Sunday blues, or I notice that I'm thinking
I've got no place to go.
I've got no place to go. Thank you. Because we've identified the thought that leads to that. I notice that I'm thinking I'm sad that my family isn't around. I notice that I'm thinking blank. And this is making me feel lonely.
What's beautiful about that too is, remember, there's the lack of connection, or the perceived lack of connection, the perceived lack of like not being seen, known, and loved. That's there, common to loneliness here as well. But even what Aaron was saying, I'm noticing, which means I'm at least seeing myself that I'm experiencing this. That I know it's just like, well, it's not the same as somebody else. You're right. It's not, but it's a start, and it has to start that way, because if you don't allow yourself to be seen by yourself, you're not even going to allow yourself to be seen by other people, right? You're going to be that person surrounded by other people and still feeling unseen.
Yeah,
right? So it has to start yourself.
Amen. And you can't have compassion on yourself unless you're putting space between you and it. You right, like you and the thought.
Sure.
Because so often we think thoughts are facts if we don't know that they're just sentences in our minds that are sometimes reaping havoc. Right. And in this case, creating loneliness. So you would just say, I notice the thought, nobody understands me, is making me feel lonely. Okay. So you've captured that thought, and then you framed it by putting space between it. I notice another way you could cognitively diffuse from it is you could say, the thought, nobody understands me, is just a thought. Like you could just say that, something like that. So there's just that putting space between you and it.
Yeah. And notice we're not even challenging the thought. We're not, and your brain may go to, well, there's some people that want to, like, just don't even go there. Like just hold space for the thought and just allow it to be judgment free. We're just looking at this like a scientist underneath a microscope, and we're taking a very objective viewpoint of it. And we're just acknowledging that it's there. That self-awareness and a self-acceptance is important, because oftentimes we go to Mr. Fix-It or Mrs. Fix-It mode, to be politically correct there, Mr. and Mrs. Fix-It. And we completely dismiss, this experience that we're having, and we don't see ourselves. And that's just piling on. It's adding to the pain rather than helping.
Yeah.
Take that time to just hold space for yourself.
It's very helpful to write it down, and this is why we're big supporters of journaling. That's another way to cognitively diffuse. You're putting literal space between you and a thought. Once you've written it down, you're like, okay, this thought doesn't need to own me. I don't need to buy into this. It's a first step. Like what Matt said, it's a first step. Yep. Okay. Then you want to choose. So far, we've captured the thought that leads to the emotion of loneliness. We go, how am I interpreting this? And then we put space between us and the thought by cognitive diffusion. And now we're going to choose, do I want to keep thinking this thought? Up until now, it really hasn't been a choice if you didn't really know about it. So, but beyond this point, you could say, yeah, no, I don't want to choose to keep thinking that. And that actually is a great new thought that you could focus on. You could go, well, what do I want to choose? And then you could be like, what were my expectations, and identify the values and focus on those things. Yeah.
Because the thought, for example, the Sunday blues, I don't have anywhere to go, doesn't help you find a place to go.
Yeah. It stops you.
Because if you don't have anywhere to go, your brain's not going to be curious to find a place to go. Right? Because there is no place to go.
Yeah.
Right. You're convinced. You're stuck in that narrative. So again, we're just like, okay, we're going to choose a different thought. Maybe there's a place to go. I wonder if there's a place to go. Even those wonder statements that start to jumpstart that curiosity, I think, are great ways to kind of start to reframe the source of the loneliness and start moving you towards a more unitive, hopeful path to accompany, rather than the despair.
Yeah. Where would I love to go? There's a lot of things. I like that you made that point. And I kind of want to do this with another example. So the thought, nobody understands me, which I think is like a real loneliness thought.
Yeah.
Do you think somebody who thinks nobody understands me is ever going to open up to anybody? No, it's going to absolutely do the opposite, or it's going to just continue. It's that self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. It's like going to continue on, and then you're going to close off and close off and close off. And guess what evidence you're going to find? You're going to find a whole lot of evidence of nobody understanding you because they don't know you. You haven't opened up to them. So how could we kind of like hack that? First, we need to put space between us and that thought. And then we go, do I want to keep believing this? Okay. This is a really important point. A lot of people, whenever we have people, we're coaching people through this, and we have the coaches ask them, do you want to keep thinking this? Like, once we figure out where it goes and like the fruits of it and everything, people are like, no, they don't. But we need that consent. You need to commit to being like, okay, so we don't want to keep thinking this. Where else are we going to direct our focus?
Okay. So we've made a choice. We don't want to keep thinking this. What's next?
All right. And then we want to question the thought's validity. So now we can start to go, hey, is that thought 100% true all the time, right? Is that thought true that nobody understands me? Has like nobody literally never understood you ever, right? Do you think it's impossible for somebody to understand you in the future? So now you're just starting to challenge it. It pokes holes in it. It kind of loosens the grip a little bit of that thought. You could also ask, could the opposite be true? Could a lot of people understand you if you actually opened up to them?
Or just, is there one person that understands you?
Right.
Or one person that at a time in your life you felt understood? Just anything to kind of get away from this universal narrative.
Yes.
That's keeping the person stuck in isolation or in that sense of loneliness that's there. Even going back to the example of like, I got no place to go. Is that 100% true? It's like, oh, no.
Yes.
You know, there's lots of different places that I could go. Right. And so there's, just continue to poke holes in it, because this process of poking the holes is actually removing the chains of some of these thoughts that are leading to more of the isolation and perpetuating the loneliness, and starting to get you out of behaviors from the inside out, not just saying, do these things instead, go to the singles club or go to like the, you know, the youth, the young adult functions or something like that, and figure to like find Catholic match or something like just it starts actually from an interior sense, get you open to actually experiencing and doing something a little bit different.
It also gives you new thoughts, right?
Thoughts are
so
good.
like the opposite thought, or just like, oh yeah, that one person did understand me when I opened up to them, right? Like, so that's a new thought. You can focus on that actually from now on. Another question you can ask is, how might I be wrong about this? Or who else might be struggling with this? I love that question, actually, especially for loneliness. Because when you can find somebody else who might be struggling with the same thing, now you can kind of like come together. And actually, that's part of the solution to it, is come together and share with one another what's going on. So I remember when I was, single and not living by my parents, I just remember bringing it up to my roommate, like, do you ever feel sad on Sundays? And she was like, yeah, I totally do. I'm like, let's do like family days on Sunday. So, all right. So that's all it needed to do, was just bring up my experience with feeling sad or being like, this is kind of what I'm going through right now.
What's beautiful about that is like, so you even use loneliness, the experience of loneliness, as an opportunity for connection.
Yes.
Right. It started there, but it didn't go this indulgent place where it's just like, oh, it's just so sad. Like, you just stayed there, but there was never really, it was just stayed at a very superficial disconnect. It was like, oh, okay. Like,
what
you started
are we gonna do about it?
you started to actually say, well, this is what I want. This is what I'd love to have some more family time, or something where the default is, unless we have other plans, the default is we're going to have dinner together.
Yes.
Right. Or we're going to go out to eat or something. We're going to do this. And it's, we can always move away from that default or choose something else. But like that starts to, now you're starting to move from the connecting on the experience of loneliness to connecting on the common desire or aspiration that you have, or need or want that you have.
Yeah. And I bet you guys, if you just throw a stone, you're going to find somebody else who experiences loneliness. So that's not going to be hard for you to find.
Yep.
Finally, so we've identified the thought that's creating the loneliness. We've diffused from the thought. We've chosen, okay, do I want to keep thinking this thought? And then we just question the validity, and we started capturing new thoughts, and even just bringing it up to somebody else. That's like a wonderful solution to this. Finally, and this entire podcast probably could have just been on this one, because I think this is like the big guns, but it's take it to prayer. Okay. Ask Jesus, or just ask the Lord to reveal to you when in his humanity in the Bible, did he feel isolated and abandoned? Did he feel alone?
See, at first I thought you're going to be like, just ask Jesus to be your friend.
Yeah.
And I was going to be like, oh my gosh, like that's not helpful. That kind of like over spiritual, like I feel so unseen with that. Cause like there is a part where it's just like, I know that, like, I know Jesus has a physical presence here on the earth in the Eucharist. I believe that. Right. But I've never been like hugged, you know, by the Eucharist. Right. The Lord loves me through his body, certainly through his flesh and blood and soul and divinity in the Eucharist, but through the body of Christ and other people in the body of Christ being Christ to me and actually wrapping their arms around me and speaking with their words and the vibration of their vocal cords, saying things like, you are good and I enjoy your company and I delight in you. Like these are real human needs for these things. But what I love that you did do is, we had already talked about connecting on that experience of loneliness. It's just recognizing that the Lord experienced that loneliness too. Every single human emotion on earth, he experienced out of choice, right? Not because there were he chose to experience it. And so there's an opportunity to connect and be seen there. And that is powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And it could
really
be
does transform
whatever particular loneliness you feel. Maybe it is like, nobody understands me. Nobody really knows me. Or maybe it's nobody sees me or nobody recognizes me or whatever that is, whatever. And you've gone through this entire thing. And then what you want to do, ask the Lord, reveal to me that moment in your life. It's definitely in his passion, but like, when in your life have you felt this way? Nobody's really seeing me. Like, and go there with him. Actually go to that place. Use your imagination. We all have one. And if you worry, you do use it. Okay. You're really good at using it. Just let's use it for good. Let's actually go to that place and be with him in it and just talk to him there. Say, Lord, I feel lonely too. And I know I don't feel as lonely as you do because, whoa, like, holy cow, you are God and you see all of us so perfectly. And like, we are just falling asleep, right? And you're asking us to wait up and all of this stuff and just be there with him, like console his heart. Like Saint Therese would always say, console his heart in that moment. There's a lot of great fruits that come from it. You stop focusing on your own loneliness. Number one, you're with him. You are with him and you are doing something that we actually are called to do with our difficult emotions. And that is bring them to the Lord and appropriate them to his experience on the cross and in his life. And that's actually he is coming in and restoring our flesh. He's coming in and restoring our emotions and our interior life.
Yeah, I think that's really, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've done this with really hard stuff. And I've just talked to him. I'm like, how did you forgive these people? Or how did you, like, what are you even thinking right now? And like, just a really beautiful prayer. Yeah.
What you just shared there is something, and this might sting a little bit for people out there that are feeling lonely, but lonely people are often very, very, very focused on themselves. And so in that prayer, certainly there is a, Lord, I'm feeling this, Lord, this is my experience, and the desire to be seen by somebody else. But what can be very, very, very healing is to say, Lord, I want to see you. Lord, I want to enter into your experience of being lonely. I want to see you there. And there's a real communion that happens when we take the focus off ourselves and we put it on the Lord, and we can see like there's a real connection. The connection that we're seeing can be very beautiful, very intimate. And it's something that's very hopeful here as well. I kind of, even in wrapping up, I think back to, John Paul II in his Theology of the Body. He talks about this experience of Adam in the garden, right? Where God looks at Adam and he says, it's not good for the man to be alone. Therefore, let's make a fitting partner for him. And what does he do? He doesn't make Eve immediately. He makes all of these animals. And then he says he's got to name all these animals. And really what's going on is Adam is just coming to know what these animals are and know what he is not, right? He's encountering all of these creatures that have no ability to see him.
Yeah.
They have no ability to hear him, to know him, to think like him. He gets done with this experience and he realizes, and John Paul II calls this experience original solitude, where he realizes he's alone, but has a different dignity than the rest of creation.
And he has a desire.
And he has a desire, right? And it's shortly after that experience where he's obedient to the task of God to name all of these things, God knowing that this experience was going to lead him down to a path of self-awareness, but also get in touch with a desire for that fitting partner. And that's where Adam goes into that. God puts him into that deep sleep and he wakes up and he sees the perfect complement in front of him. He doesn't have to go out and invent it. He doesn't say, Adam, get your hands in the clay and build this perfect complement. God knows what was on his heart, and Adam knows what it's on his heart, so that when what was on his heart was revealed to him, standing before him, after he awoke from that sleep, he could say, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. And he could see somebody that was able to receive him, see him, fully know him, right? And this was the experience of original unity that John Paul II talks about. So that unity that we're all seeking, it comes by way of entering into the solitude, but not in a way that is despairing, which goes the trajectory of loneliness, but in a way that's hopeful. Yes.
I will say
that. In a way that's hopeful and leads to the unity.
Yes. And so really walking away from this podcast, here's what we want you to know. We don't want you to think that wanting to connect with people is like, we want you to allow, what am I trying to say? Okay. We want you to allow yourself to want to connect to people. Okay.
Very human.
That is human. That's what we've been made for. So we're not saying like, just change your mindset. You don't need humans. No. What we didn't want you to do is continue in the loneliness, and those thoughts were keeping you in the loneliness. So we wanted to correct your thinking so that you can actually bring it to the Lord and actually uncover what it is that you truly desire. So when you go and like really bring your pain to the Lord and even just take a little bit off of his shoulders, because you're like, I'm feeling it too, and I'll take my little bit right now. And you're connecting with him there. You can also tell him, Lord, this is really what I truly desire. This is what I'm truly seeking right here. I'm truly seeking to be known and seen and heard and loved and whatever it is. But in that intimate place, that's where you bring it to. Yeah. So that's what I want you guys to walk away with. I don't want you to kind of like mindset your way out of loneliness. That is all prep for the prayer. So
beautiful.
I just want to clarify that.
Loved it.
All right, guys.
And this work is hard to do on your own, okay? And so what we just walked you through, right, it's really meant to be in a dialogue with somebody else, right, ideally. And so if you've got a trusted friend, you can enter that dialogue. But if you're looking for a coach, check us out in the academy, okay? Just go to metanoiacatholic.com or catholiccoaching.com. Click that Get Coach button and it'll lead you to our academy. If you don't want to join the academy, that's fine. We've got our whole directory of our certified Catholic coaches that share your faith, that are just waiting in the wings to just listen to you, see you, know you, love you, and help you move forward in hope. So take us up on that. See you guys in the academy, hopefully, or you can connect with one of our coaches.
Yeah. Stop being lonely. Come join us.
Yeah.
Bye.
A lot of fun. Bye. Hey, thanks for sticking with us in the Catholic Coaching Podcast. If you like what you heard,
please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.